I don't know what it is that I was doing yesterday, balancing things on the internet, on Discord, obviously building, working on some builds that I've had kind of had to put off for many life reasons. But I had a bit of an epiphany, and it in a way shook me to my core, which is weird because in hindsight, it's so obvious. Here's the thing. I feel like in a lot of ways, I lied to you unintentionally, but I lied to myself for a long time too. I've been with Bionicle since the beginning, since 2001, right? And before it was cool. No, but I celebrated birthdays by like rushing to find the birthday present that when you shook it, it had just that right rattle. You know, you pick up a can, you know how it sounds, how it feels, and I would bring these toys of mine to my friends' houses. I'd play with them on the trampoline or in the pool or whatever, right? Take them to the creek behind my house and with me sledding and snowboarding and stuff when I was a kid. And it's like, I loved that stuff, man. Our house bordered the woods and they'd be climbing trees with me. My Bionicles were so special. They were an integral part of that time of my life. I broke pieces, I painted pieces, I polished pieces back to their original luster. You know, I've cut my foot on pieces. Of course, haven't we all stepped on something Lego? And there's something to that, isn't there? Like, Bionicle is so much more than a toy, but not definitionally. It is, from my experience, subjectively, to me, more than a toy, because it speaks to something inside of me. But that's not true for everyone, right? And it not just speaks to that part of me inside, which it will always hold a special place in my heart, of course, but it also speaks to a time in my life that we never get back, right? When childhood is over, whenever that line is drawn, I don't know when we cross it, right? When we go from being a child to being an adult, but somewhere in there it ends. And maybe some people like to sort of push their Bionicles away. They're too cool for that anymore, right? That's a child's toy, but that was never really the case for me. And it helps. It's almost poetic in that how Bionicle sort of just aligned so perfectly with my childhood. 2008, when things turned around, we were getting back our Toa Nuva, now new and improved as the Toa Fantoka and Mystica, was when the 2008 recession hit my family and we lost our home, right? And I moved into high school at the same time, and so it wasn't just a pivotal time in this Bionicle storyline, but it was a time that reflected in my own life as well. 2010, I moved once again so that I can continue to stay, oddly enough, within the same high school I was in while my family moved further away, right? And so somewhere along the line, it's like I see this thing sort of crumbling beneath my feet, right? And it's always there, but I shared Bionicle not just as my own passion, but with friends. I grew up with friends for 7 years of Bionicle's total 9 or 10 year run, however you want to see it. I shared that experience with them, for better or worse. Sure, some of my friends got into it early in its run, some of my friends were into the later years and so on, right? But I was there all along the way. It always stuck with me. But that's just me. Where my friends may have moved on to other things, Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, playing with Beyblades, and even had a friend that got into like other buildable toys, but like still tried to distance themselves from Lego. That was kind of a wild thing. They'd go and buy these little gotcha toys from vending machines, right? And you could build the little figures that were inside those. I know the name of them off the top of my head, but my tongue won't spit it out. Anyway, point being, right? It is crucial to understand that the value we place in the things we love is not always a rational value, and that's okay. There's something so beautiful about being human that allows an object out there to speak to you, to represent you. And Bionicle is a really good one because you can build this guy if you want to, but you don't have to, right? If you own more figures, you can mix and match colors and parts and flip the whole figure upside down if you want to, right? You get to create who you want to create. You can follow along with canon, or you can be like me and go out of the way to write your own headcanon, bring up your own characters, build your own stories worthy of being told to someone else, as I often did. And ultimately, that's the definition of my life, right? My life is defined by its parallel march with this franchise from a brand that today is one of, if not the largest and most profitable toy manufacturers in the world, but at the time when this came out was struggling, a mirror that matched my struggles. Different, of course, but generally speaking, it is, I can't sleep on that. You know what I mean? Like, I respect Bionicle for not just what it brought to myself and to friends of mine, what friends it helped me make, but how it so fluidly evolved with my life and mirrored the journeys I was going on. Right around the same time we got into Metro Nui from Mata Nui, I was sort of distancing self from my childhood best friend and getting a new friend group, right? And so it's like every time something changed in this Bionicle universe, my life was changing to sort of mirror it in some ways. And there's something really profound to that, but that's just me. So that's the wild thing, is it's not that Bionicle will never be back, will never come back, but it's that we can't get it back. That's a special time in our lives. Obviously, everybody came to Bionicle at a different point. Not everybody was there from the beginning. Not everybody was the same age at the beginning as I was, a young kid. Some people got into it way later in its run, or even later in their own life. Maybe it was around while they were growing up. They just never really got the chance to pick one up off of store shelves, but they happened to pawn one in a garage sale or what have you and fell in love with this toy, which I can understand because I've loved it all my life. Bionicle is a toy. It's undefined, you know, its very nature fundamentally is to build, right? It is to build figures, to build stories, to build a world, and build yourself in a lot of ways. And I know that seems cringy, maybe, you know, philosophical, whatever, that's totally fine. But the relationships that we have with the objects we interact with in our everyday lives are part of what make each and every one of us unique, right? No two people are the same, even when their lives from an outside appearance may seem similar. You know, even if the surface looks the same, you zoom in and you see that the material is just a little different. The colors are just a little different. The refractivity, a little different, whatever. Point being, there's so much nuance to each and every one of us that makes us who we are and makes us capable of not just existing in this world, right, but sort of coasting and finding our own paths, defining not just what this toy means to us, but what we mean to ourselves, what the world means to us, what interactions with friends and family and loved ones mean to us. Because nothing takes that stuff away. It is fleeting. It's always fleeting. Every moment that is passed is a moment you don't get back. It's gone, right? But you have a memory. Nothing can take that from you. I mean, you get my point, right? Bionicle wasn't just lightning in a bottle, you know, not just a product that hit store shelves at the perfect time for a company like Lego, but it was the perfect time for me. And that may be different for you. It may not even be Bionicle that is your Bionicle, right? To me, this is my childhood, but to you, it may be something else. Pokemon, like I mentioned before, because I can relate to that stuff too. I may not have had such an interest in things like Hot Wheels as many of my friends did growing up, and the other toys which they resonated towards, right? Because that would help to sort of steer their own futures. And I love that for them. You know, wherever our friendships diverged with time, wherever the forks of life took us, you know, we all have those moments we got to share together, not only with each other, but with the toys that defined us, with the things that we loved, and helped us find out who we are, helped us describe the world when we finally came into sentience, you know? That's so special. There's nothing that replaces that. Every kid exists to hopefully become an adult, you know, and in that time, they're all going to have experiences that shape their perspective, their perception of the world, and through how they are shaped, it affects how we see them, right? sometimes you may see somebody, you may meet somebody you do not understand, and you may choose to avoid them out of fear of the unknown, or maybe because someone told you, hey, psst, hey, that guy over there, yeah, they're bad, but you don't know them. You shouldn't judge somebody you've never met, even if you want to take your friend's word for it. It's not to say you need to go out of your way to meet somebody. We don't have time to meet everyone we come across, but you should try it to the best of your ability to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And honestly, I have a profound amount of respect for the people that I meet who are able to go out of their way to be something different from myself. I would much rather be in a world where I'm not stuck in my own head all the time. And if everybody out there reflected who I was, if everybody looked like me and dressed like me and walked like me, talked like me, like the world would kind of suck. It would drive you mad. And so I appreciate that they're not like me. They bring something different to the table, a different life experience coming from different places. Where I live, just speaking from myself in the Midwestern United States, you know, we learned in school that like America feels like this place that just kind of exists in a bubble, but it's not. There is so much beauty outside of this country, outside of the state that I live in, you know, and out there in the world, you know, the seven wonders of the world, in which there are more, you know, of course, but they span all continents, right? Because we've all done something profound. All our cultures, all our classes, all of our people at some point in time have done something to shift the balance of how they're going to be perceived in the future. And they didn't do it because they wanted to leave a legacy necessarily, right? But sometimes they just did it because that was the way they saw the world. That was the way it spoke to them. They built like we built, right? And in that journey, for them, for us, for everybody in the future along, you know, we're always going to find something that resonates with us, and we should stick to that. We should never let that thing leave our side. We should never let someone take it from us. We should never let somebody devalue it or us for liking it, because ultimately, you know, some people out there are enjoying something that you may not understand, but to them it is their Bionicle. It is their world. It's where they exist comfortably. It's where they escape to. Oftentimes, people find themselves escaping into fantasy to escape the crappy reality that the world can be sometimes. Kids can see the world in color, but I feel like as you tend to grow older, it's so easy. In much the way you lose your sense of hearing those high-pitched sounds, you also lose the ability to see those colors that kids once saw, right? That the world doesn't look quite as shiny as it once did. It doesn't have that same luster. And part of the reason I think that is that things aren't as novel as they once were. They're not as new, but also that with our understanding of something like rain and the snow that we're going to get tomorrow, as adults, when we have to lug ourselves out of bed and make it to work by a specific point in time, that snow is an obstacle for us. But for kids, that snow is their hope of not having to go to school, you know, so that they get a day off, that they get a day to go play in the snow or just sit inside where it's cozy, relax, read a book, sit by a fire or whatever is warm, you know, sit by family members and enjoy just that little bit of time that everything out there is trying to take away from us. Bionicle is an escape for me, but for somebody else it's books. For somebody else it's movies. For somebody else it is, I keep mentioning Pokemon. I do have Pokemon cards as well, but generally, you know, there's always something. You should really try to come to people with compassion and with a sincere curiosity. You won't always be able to do it. I understand that. Not everybody has the time to be curious about every little detail of somebody, but you should try to treat somebody, anybody, as if there's the potential that I could get to know this person, so I should treat them as if I know them already. I should treat them with respect. Treat them like a friend. It doesn't mean that they aren't bad, that they aren't going to keep your respect or whatever, but start off from a place of respect. Because at the very least, you know that they went through something to get where they are today. We've all been through something. We all have the stories that we can tell or we can hold to ourselves. It's our choice. But no one has the right to tell you whether you get the choice to tell your story, to live your life. Of course not. That'd be silly. You wouldn't want somebody to do it to you, so it feels bad to do it to somebody else. And it is wrong to do it to somebody else. And sometimes we do it without thinking. You know, not all of us have bad intentions, but sometimes we just have a bad day and we don't really see things through another person's perspective. We're too in our own heads. That's okay. We all have those days, but through the sincere attempt to try to be better, to try to understand, to be open-minded, to try and learn, that can be respected. It doesn't mean you're not going to push people away in the time. Point being, anybody can react to any situation in whatever method they choose. Ultimately, it's up to you to seek out comfort and hopefully, ideally, bring comfort to others. Before I go, just because I did write some of this down, I just want to say that while I'm sure we can all relate to the feeling that we felt rambling to friends, to family members, because I do this so goddamn much, about Bionicles, in my case, you gotta remember that someone out there is rambling about something you may have no knowledge of, is desperate to talk about the things that they too love. And I hope you give them the satisfaction of listening, right? When they've found their Bionicle, their passion, it means everything to them when you do. That's validation. That's what we all seek. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for this one. I hope you did enjoy the video. I know this one's a little bit different from the normal Bionicle, but it is a Bionicle video at the end of the day. Also, I once again wanted to say thank you to the person who sent me this canister. This is the first Bionicle I ever owned, right? The mask is my mask. I put my original Toa mask from 2001 on this canister because to me that is the embodiment of my childhood. I'm not somebody that collects boxes from Lego sets. They take up so much space. I'm not opposed to it, but that can be for other people. That's totally fine. But the exception to my rule is this one right here, because I still remember picking this set up off of store shelves when I didn't know what a Bionicle was, when I didn't know who Tahu was. And I cannot tell you why I was drawn to the red one, and he just happened to be the leader. Maybe it was the cool sword, the cool mask, the goddamn cool lava surfing. Like, that's awesome stuff, man. I can't tell you what it was. And sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes you're passionate about a thing you can't fully describe, you don't fully understand. That's okay. Actually, that's more than okay, honestly. That's pretty beautiful, because I can sympathize exactly with that. I can't tell you what it is that drew me into Bionicle. I cannot tell you why I picked this up off of store shelves for my 7th or 8th birthday. But I did. And it changed my life. And I don't need to understand it to know that I enjoy it. I don't need to understand it to know that it resonates with me, that it helps me find a little piece of myself that without it would be empty. I've lost my Bionicle collections in the past. I've had my Bionicle collection stolen in my life twice. And it does leave an empty feeling in you. I would never really say I've had a true dark age, but to those who have, I know so many people who have tried to kind of leave their cult of Bionicle, if you will, and come back to it. Because it brings them comfort. And sometimes it just brings them a little nostalgia. Sometimes they just buy one set, right? The first set they remember getting, or their favorite set or whatever, and that's enough for them. That's enough for me in most cases. I don't need to own all of these sets to be happy. I own what I own because I build things and I enjoy mocking. But I'm not out here trying to complete a collection. I'm just out here now knowing my place, if you will. And being comfortable there, knowing the place I defined for myself. Let me be more specific. No one told me this was my place. No one told me I had to stay here. I chose to stay here. And if anybody told me not to, I'd say no. Because this is what brings me comfort. This is what allows me to express myself. This is my painting, my poetry, my music, my artwork, whatever. This is expression for me. And for many people, that expression is dressing in colorful clothing. That's cool. Man, it's wild. I went to a Goodwill yesterday, found this kick-ass scarf that I love, and I'm not wearing right now, but I did wear it earlier today. And I found this cool-looking jacket, not a men's jacket, a women's jacket, very obviously. But I was like, I can still like respect that. That's a neat jacket. I quite like that. And I'm sure I could see a guy who could pull it off. Like it's gray and it's got a pink plaid and yellow on it, but like it's tastefully done. And like, yeah, if there's somebody confident enough, that they can do it. Absolutely. but I can respect what it is and be like, that's neat. I like that. And it doesn't mean it speaks to everybody, you know? It doesn't have to. It just has to resonate with you for it to be valid, for it to be. No one can take that from me. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. So anyway, so to end, I just want to say, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe. If you take anything away from this video, and I don't want to suggest necessarily that you tell your story on the internet. We all know what that can lead to, but do feel as though you're welcome to talk about your story. If not here in the comments on Discord. We do have a Discord server. It is free to join. There are near 800 members over there. You can go hang out with all of us. And we put a pretty big emphasis on being inclusive over there, bringing to the table whatever you want. And there are many people over there who don't build or contribute their builds to the server. They just kind of exist, and that's enough for them. And that can be enough for you too. So if you think that, oh, I have nothing to contribute, I'm not a good mocker or not a good creator, drawer, artist, whatever, join anyway. Check the place out. You might meet a friend. Anyway. You can check out Instagram, link down in the description below. I also have a Blue Sky, although it's not actually for Bionicle content. It is for political content. You can check it out. I will leave it linked in the description as well. I also have a channel that is following that one as well. Another video coming up for that channel relatively soon here. And on top of all of that, you can find me over on Patreon if you want to help support the channel. And I believe I also have like a little tips page if you want to check that out as well for when I eventually start streaming content. Not sure when that's going to happen. I'll see you on the next one. Stay warm, stay safe in this cold weather that we're about to get. And I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care.